This is a story about 5 men. Men who worked together, who became friends, who shared and in retirement are continuing to share their lives together. Recently, we joined these men as they got together for a trip down their old stomping ground, the Barren River.
About a month ago, I thought, well, we ought to make one last trip down the Barren, because we used to make 3 or 4 trips a year, and we'd pick up wire baskets and nets and the fish dams and everything like that. You know, catch a lot of fish, do a lot of line, just have a wonderful time.
First, let's meet the characters. And I do mean characters. Tom Lewis, formerly the 2nd District Law Enforcement Supervisor, served the department from 1947 to 1976. Tom Caudle, Conservation Officer for 30 years in Simpson County. Joe Pillow, also Conservation Officer for 30 years, serving Christian County and Logan County. Jim Tolson, Conservation Officer from 1953 to 1977. And Clark Bailey, Conservation Officer from 1948 to 1980. All of them together have over 146 years of combined service. The get-together began with a fishing trip while floating down the Barren River. But Tolson got his fishing equipment knocked out of the boat.
All of them trying to beat me on fishing. That's the reason that I lost my rod, and you throw my rod out.
But I can't keep you from blaming it, but I got it if you do, you know better. You know that I didn't even see it go out. Mine was back here. But I didn't even see yours. You had it up in front of you. I thought you were supposed to look after your own rod.
I am, but you said watch the limbs and I ducked.
You got your eyes full watching yours, hadn't you?
That's right.
Why in the hell didn't you grab your rod when the limb grabbed it? Huh?
I didn't see it. I had my head down. Joe said, look out, the limbs.
Where did you have your finger?
Huh?
Where did you have your finger?
When you work the same job for so long with the same people, you're bound to have some funny stories.
We were coming down the river one time with, I had a rider with us. Somebody may have told you about this. I saw him down in town one day, and he said, I'd like to make a trip with you fellas and write a story for, he was a freelance writer for the Courier Journal, for the magazine section. I said, well, fine, Paul, we're going next week. So we came up here and put in and came with us, and we started around where he was in my boat.
And he was scared of snakes. We didn't know it. And we pushed off one morning. Everybody was fishing. Tom's boat went around and around. And one of these little snakes about this long fell in the boat. He threw a rod, walked on his back all the way back to the boat, scared of it. And it was in March. It's cold.
He said to me, Tom, aren't you ever afraid of snakes going under these willows like that? Don't you ever see them? I said, yes. I just happened to look up, and there was one right above his head. And I said, well, there's one right there, Paul. And so help me, he was sitting with his back to me, and he came back on his butt and his elbows all the way to the back of the boat, and I grabbed him and held him down in the boat till we got through that rift through there, you know. Well, from then on, he wasn't watching for anything except snakes. And the next one he seen, we whopped that paddle. Where did the snake go? Right in the boat. Here he came again. So he had a rod and reel in his hand too. He threw it out of the boat, and that was my son's rod and reel.
I said, I'll get your rod for you. I pulled off and jumped in and felt around. I felt it when as soon as the first lick with my foot down on the bottom.
He said, Tom, I can't find it. I said, okay, Jim, I'll get out there and help you. And so I stripped off and dove in that water. When I come up, he said, uh-oh, I found it right here. He had it all the time.
But I got him in that cold water.
You can't ever believe anything Jim Tolson tells you.
I can remember one particular case. I caught the man, and at that time he was the president of the Coon Club. And this happened was in Christian County where this was, and I'd heard him shoot. I guess they'd shot 50 times before I could ever get to him on the creek. Well, they had started out and going across the field, starting back to the house when I got up, when I called him. And I walked up to him and spoke to him. I turned around, and the man's name was Bill. The first time he looked around, he said, Joe, he said, I know you know I won't believe a damn word I say. He said, that old dog guy that got here he won't even leave the house unless I've got this rifle. He said, you can see it's not even loaded.
We stopped at a cabin down, an old log cabin. The roof was gone.
Cabin at one time.
Yeah, it was. We used to use that when we come down the river. We had permission to use it. And but at this time the cabin had deteriorated to nothing, just walls. Even the windows were all out of it. And so we had a nice big breakfast that morning, and Jim felt a call to nature, you know, and he took a boat oar with him. I couldn't figure out what he took a boat. We were down below the cabin. Took a boat oar with him. So he went up there and he put that boat oar between in the corner, right across between two windows, and he was using that for his stool. And he did all right until it broke. Well, of course, he had to call for help, and Clark had to go up there and take him a towel, soap and water, and get him in the river and so he'd get himself a good bath. But that was one of the things that we laughed about a lot.
But not all their experiences were pleasant ones. Sometimes their jobs as conservation officers called for courage.
J. Brady McLean, the officer, and he lived on the, been around for us, Jones Keeney tract at Dawson Springs. The department owned it. Brady was living there, and Brady and I was out on patrol one day, and we saw a couple of hunters in back of Providence, just off of Tradewater River. Brady stayed in the car, and I got out and went to the hunters in the field. And as I walked to them, the fellow with a gun in his hand, only one gun and a party of two. They weren't out there really hunting so much. They'd been drinking and sort of fouling around. But when I went to the man and talked to him about his hunting trip, he threw the gun on me at my belly. I kept walking to him to where I could almost reach the gun.
Missed him, Joe.
And he kept backing off. I opened my pea coat up. I had a 45 under here. I just pulled my pea coat back. He could see my gun. I couldn't reach for my gun. Didn't want to. He kept backing off. I kept talking to him. When he got off about 40 yards, I told him I'd shoot the damn thing or go. And he left, him and his buddy. I already got a license on his old truck. Got a warrant. John Sigler was chief police at Providence at the time. I got a warrant on the day after that. Went to John's that evening, and we went down in Dubin's low moisture coal mine underground to pick up this fella. I know his name. I can call his name, but I don't guess that's good. But I have a letter from Earl Wallace about that situation.
Because you get shot at pretty often, especially during dove season. It's not intentional, but it's there just the same. You go out in the dove field with 40, 50, up to, I've seen as many as 200 on one dove field. And a few of them got too much happy juice in them, and they liable to shoot at anything.
Of course, when these men first started to work, things were a little different back then. Okay, they were a lot different back then.
When I went to work, I didn't even have a gun. They didn't furnish them. And I finally borrowed one. And my first night out by myself, went into a coon hunt, and they were wrong, and I was so scared I didn't know what to do, what to say, or what. You didn't have any training then. You just on your own. And they were in Christian County instead of Todd County, and I didn't know the difference. I don't guess they did either, and I cited them to finally got the citation fixed out, give it to them, and cited them to Todd County instead of Christian County.
Mm-hmm. See, we didn't have a way of communicating when I first went to work. You might not see anybody for a week, 10 days. The only way you call somebody would be by telephone.
What kind of uniforms did you have?
Your own, whatever you wanted to wear.
We didn't have any uniform. And when they first issued the first sidearm, didn't get no ammunition with our sidearm.
And let's not forget about Tolson's fishing gear. Up until now, he'd been using borrowed equipment.
We got that for. I got it, Jim. I got it. Look here. Hey.
Hey, did y'all see my hat? Did you see my hat come by? I lost my hat.
The man who never gets hung up.
is hung up again.
What we would do would drag these holes for baskets. One afternoon we had camped, and two farmers came down to our camp, sat around and talked, and we talked. We was eating supper, and finally one of them said, "Are y'all going on down the river?" And we said, "Yes, sir, tomorrow." "Oh, you can't get through," said, "there's a log jam down there." Well, they soon left, and we sat around and went to bed, and it started to drizzle and rain. The next morning, Tom said, "Let's go on to the log jam and take out there if we can't get around it." And we hadn't gone a quarter of a mile around the bend in the river, and they had a cutoff in there made. We had to come back and blow it out with dynamite. They was catching every fish
that came through.
That came through there. They didn't want us to go on down and find it, but we went down and found it.
You have to actually use your firearm, your weapon for anything?
No, I never did have to draw my weapon on anybody. I mean,
That's good.
I always had it available. But, of course, at that time, we worked a lot of times at night by ourselves. I guess the first 10 years I worked, most of your work was done at night. Because you was at home, you had no radio contact with anybody, and you get a call, you had to make it, and you didn't have time to hunt anybody up to go with you. Because most of that would be, well, we had jacklighting going on then, but we didn't have that many deer in the 2nd District at that time, and most of your night hunting was rabbit hunters up and down the road. And the deer come along probably 15, 20 years ago when they first started stalking deer.
Okay, I met him in Dunmore. He was driving an old pickup truck that I didn't know we could get home in when I found him. And we went from there, and then we was making such good money, we both bought new cars right away. He was making, I guess we was making minimum wage at that time, about $5 a day, wasn't that right, Jim? Right. But I tell you what, we always felt like, if we could build up an outfit like we've got today, that our life was well spent. We saw the ground roots of this thing.
Down in Logan County, one year we caught two men jacklighting one night, and like one of them was in the back of the car. He had so much to drink he'd passed out, but he had his high-powered 30-06 rifle sitting up there between his legs, and two more in the front with him, and we cited him in the court for jacklighting, and they hired this attorney to represent him. Well, when they finally got him in the court, well, they brought this old bloody dog's tail in the court in a plastic bag, and he claimed he had shot a dog that day. Because how come him to have the rifle in the vehicle with him that night? He had shot this old stray dog out there, and the case had happened about 2 months before we got it in the court. Of course, the tail looked just as fresh as if they'd cut it off that day. But the jury found them guilty on that.
One time coming down, Henry Bowling and Jim Tolson were together, and Tom and I were together, and we'd pulled into a sandbar, and Jesse Lane and Joe Taylor had brought lunch in and met us on the sandbar, and we had lunch. So we started to get back in the boat, and Tom and I got back in our boat and started down. We got about 50 feet, I suppose. And of course, Jim, he loaded off. Henry was in his boat. Jim stepped over in his boat, turned up, just flipped it over like that. Fishing tackle, plugs and everything, you know, coming down there. I said, "Tommy, better turn around." They've turned over. He said, "Let them drown." You know, we did go help them back out, though.
I wrestled a man that had killed a man for a gun in a jowboat on Pond River at Fish Trap Bridge, just north of Madisonville, near McLean County. Pond River divides Muhlenberg, McLean, Hopkins counties. And I wrestled a man there, and for a while I was concerned. But when I got my knee up and ready to pop him with a knee in the boat, I knew he had one leg. And I thought I had the advantage. Well, he gave up. He quit. And that's the size of it. No shots fired, nobody was hit or hurt. But it come pretty near being serious, and that was as far as it went. A friend of mine stopped right ahead of on the bridge and was watching, looking over when it happened. And I can't remember his name, but he belonged to the sports club in Madisonville. He saw what went on. He was very complimentary of the way I handled it, that nothing happened.
What are you most thankful for over the years?
Well, I think probably the fact that I was one of the few people that had a job he liked for all of his life, you know. And my job, my vocation was my play, and that was just great. And of course, the most thankful thing I'm for is my wife and family, of course, my children. I'm most thankful for them than anything else. But as far as my work is concerned, the fact I had a job that I liked and loved to work, I don't care how many hours it took. I just loved every minute of it.
Most thankful that I never had to use a gun.
In how many years?
33 years and 4 months.
Well, I guess most thankful that I can be thankful for is still maintain a pretty good health and the friendship I built up over the years with so many people that I worked with.
That I am able to go like I am to be 77 years old, and I contribute a lot of it is being out in the open and walking these hills and hollows.
We had an opportunity to build a program, but we had the opportunity to take something that was nothing and build it. And I think that's what made the work so delightful. You felt like you was doing a great service to man, to your fellow man.
To say I've always been for the Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. I'm glad to see that it's come along the way it has, and I'll always be for it. I mean, I'll have a soft spot in my heart for it, because say I made my living with them for 31 years, and I think, of course, we didn't get rich, but we had a lot of fun, and I raised my family, and I'm very well satisfied with my career, and I hope that they continue to do better all the time.
I love the outdoors. I love to see a plane grow. I love to put a plane in the ground. I expect I've been responsible for 2 million planes being put in the ground.
All in all, we had a good time. Our years we always enjoyed the work. We enjoyed being together, and like the trip we're on now, we always made it where we could enjoy it. And when the work was there, we did it. And that's what makes everything, work good, is everybody get along and do what's supposed to. We didn't have any problem. If we did, we sit down and worked them out.
Oh, we've had a lot of good experience there. I'll tell you, I really enjoyed this river. I enjoyed all the rivers. To be on the water is one of the greatest blessing a man can have, I really have enjoyed the water.
Conservation has been my attitude for a long time. I love the fish wildlife program. I love to fish and I love to hunt, and if I never fire another gun or wet another hook, I've done it all. I enjoyed every bit of it.
The fishing trip was unsuccessful as far as the frying pan was concerned, but that's okay since these men were going to eat steak and potatoes anyway. The evening ended with pleasant thoughts of long careers and lives well spent.